Hi, good morning everybody and welcome to today's webinar. Obviously this is a sector update for hospitality. My name is Tara Powerville and I'm the sector manager within Pearson. That generally means I have responsibility for all of the developments that were taken through Pearson. I work with lots of external stakeholders, customers, and basically take the needs of those groups and present it to the business and work with all of the different functional areas from assessment to sales to qualification development and training in order to kind of try and help a smooth transition through to so we're able to deliver those products to you. So hopefully that means I'll be able to kind of give answer any questions that you have today. We are just going to do is kind of a brief overview of kind of all the developments and things that are happening in the sector at the moment. And you have the chance to answer questions throughout this session. As the host said, if you can type your questions into the chat window and I will try to answer those as they come up. But if there's any that I don't have time for at the time, I will readdress them at the end of the session. If there are any questions that can't be answered today, we will be providing you with a question sheet at the end of the presentation, which will gather the questions from all of the hospitality webinars. We ran one yesterday as well, so you'll be able to see all the questions asked and all of the answers, and we'll get those for you within the next few days. As I say, if there's anything we can't answer directly today. Also at the end of this session, after the questions, we'll stop recording, but then there'll be an opportunity for you to add your email address into one of the windows for networking opportunities. If you want to kind of network with anybody else kind of that's on the webinar today, you'll be able to add there at that point, but you'll be prompted to do so. Okay, just before we start the presentation, I'm just going to do a quick poll that's asking which customer segment you feel you belong to. So it's just so we can get an idea of who we've kind of got on the call and who people who are attending these sessions, so we can tailor information to kind of our most common group afterwards. So if you could kind of all vote now, that's coming up. Okay, I think that looks like everybody has responded by now. Okay, so we can see that we've got a large percentage, 70% of work-based learning providers in the room, and a few from FE as well, but largely kind of concentrated on WBL today. Thank you very much. Okay, so the things we're going to talk about today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our technical certificate and tech level qualifications that we have recently developed and just launched. Then I will be doing a brief overview of our apprenticeship updates, kind of what's happening with the new standards and on programme and EPA around that. Then there'll be a couple of slides on a couple of new developments and how you can kind of get involved and sort of timelines associated with those. And then at the very end, a notification about some qualifications that we're going to extend or withdraw within the portfolio, because quite a few have got review dates coming up at the end of December this year. So just kind of giving you a heads up of kind of what's happening with those. Okay, so first of all, if we go on to technicals and tech levels. So at level 2, we have recently just made available, and these qualifications have gone live, 3 qualifications that are aimed at the post-16 market. They're full-time qualifications, and they're kind of alternatives to the BTEC Firsts. What we've had previously in hospitality is quite a generic BTEC First that looks at kind of many different options within hospitality, and where learners can kind of take several different paths. However, these qualifications are much more occupationally focused and kind of lead to a specific kind of occupation, much more hands-on and practical than what we've kind of had before as well. So these have recently gone live. They went live last month. They are registered, recognised on the DFE performance tables as well. Now, each of these qualifications has 100% mandatory content, and each of them also has 1 or 2 external assessments involved, depending on the number of units. We have to meet a certain percentage of external assessment to meet the DFE requirements. So that will kind of, depending on the size of the qualification, depending how many units we needed to offer as external assessments. But the external assessment accounts for roughly 25 to 33% of the qualification. Most of those external assessments are offered online on-screen question papers. It's a mix of open-end scenario-based questions and a couple of kind of multiple choice questions, but because of the open-ended questions, they can't be kind of auto-scored straight away. They'll be marked kind of by ePen, which then obviously means that we can't offer an immediate result, but we're kind of working on kind of the levels of service levels agreements around that, but it'll be a maximum kind of 6 weeks that in order to get those results. But those external assessments are linked to a unit, as in a particular unit. So in some of our competitors' qualifications that are similar to these, they have external assessments that range across multiple units or potentially all of the units within the qualification, which means that they can't be taken until the end, once the learner has kind of learned all the content and gone through all the training for that qualification. But it also means they have to revise a lot of kind of really broad content. So we've kind of stripped ours down to kind of which units we feel are best kind of suited to an external assessment online question paper. And the learner can then obviously take it once that unit has been developed, and that's quite a kind of good motivational tool in order to kind of get something under their belt kind of quite soon, and you can kind of decide when you take it. Most of these units that are externally tested are ones that are delivered quite early on within the qualification, so it is quite good to kind of get it out the way. They can then focus on the kind of the other units, and then at the end of the qualification we also have a synoptic assignment, but that is one that we offer internally assessed, and rather than stipulating exactly, kind of, we give you options of what kind of scenario and what brief to follow, but you can adapt that yourself to make it kind of a local scenario. We just give you kind of guidance on that and what it needs to cover. So we feel that rather than having this intense pressure at the end of a qualification, not kind of knowing what's coming up, learners can actually kind of be aware of perhaps what's coming up and kind of work towards that, and then it's all kind of internally assessed, so they don't have that additional kind of burden of this external examiner kind of coming in and looking at that time. So we have the only exception to that is for the one at the top qualification, the professional cookery, and one of the external assessments within that qualification is a task-based unit, just because it wasn't, we didn't have kind of any more units that were kind of really suitable for online testing. So that is a task-based where they kind of have to cook a meal. It's a 3 to 4 hour session for one of the units for kitchen operations, and it's kind of we'll observe kind of service being carried out. We have 3 windows of opportunity for external assessment on that, happening from the 8th of January, 5th of March and the 11th of June. They do get one resit if the learners kind of fail one of those. They can take one resit free of charge as part of that qualification. Okay, if you want to find out more information about that qualification or those qualifications, the specifications are listed under our BTEC technical section of our website. Okay, so as I say, if you go into pearson.com qualifications, you'll get a drop-down menu that gives all kind of the groups of qualifications that we have, from apprenticeships, BTEC First, BTEC Nationals. There is an option under there for BTEC Level 2 Technical. So if you select that, this page will come up. And as you can see, on the right-hand side is a box that has loads of different letters in it. If you select P, for example, you will see that 2 of those 3 qualifications that I mentioned that have gone live are listed under there: patisserie, confectionery and professional cookery. And the other one was food and beverage, so you'd click on F for that. But I'm just going to sort of show you through. If we go back to P, and then to go choose the professional cookery, I'll just show you where this kind of page goes to. Okay, so then this is where we have the specification on there. I'm not going to go into kind of detail in that and show you that at the moment or anything, because we haven't got enough time to go into any specific detail, but just wanted to really highlight the information and the support materials that are available to support these qualifications. So as I say, we have the specification, we have sample assessment materials related to each unit. There are statements of purpose included in there, which kind of give an overview of who these qualifications are aimed at, what the progression routes are to and from these qualifications. So quite good kind of for any marketing purposes, if you kind of want to use those. We have authorised assignments briefs included as well as schemes of learning and delivery programs. So a whole host of materials there for you to kind of get to grips and helping you to support deliver that qualification. Just if we scroll just up just slightly, you will see just a little bit further, okay, at the top, just underneath the main header of professional cookery, you'll see we're on the specification tab at the moment. And just remember where that news one is, the third one along, because I'll show you kind of in a moment. That's where you can kind of find information about some online bookings, but that's kind of where it is. Okay, if we go back to the presentation. Okay, so the only other thing I really wanted to kind of add about these level 2s is that they are graded past merit and distinction. And I've already mentioned about free resit, but there is quite a large employer involvement element that is included, which is mandatory. It's another DFE performance criteria that needed to be met. It doesn't stipulate exactly how much, but it needs to be a significant proportion, which is included. So in the specification at the end of each unit, we have kind of suggested what employer involvement might be suitable for that unit. And it could come in the terms of work experience, but we know how difficult that can sometimes be to arrange. So sometimes the employers can offer masterclasses, or they can offer real life examples of an issue that they want to provide. They want to seek a solution from, and will invite the kind of learners to come up with something for them. There's a whole host of different things that we've kind of suggested in there. So again, just trying to give you as much support as possible with these qualifications. Okay, we've also got level 3s. That was all level 2s. There's level 3s, which are known as tech levels, and again, these have gone live in September. We have, again, very hands-on, very practical, and these provide progression from those level 2. So you can see very similar themes here with the professional chefs and the food and beverage service supervision. So the food and beverage one is about the service, and then the level 3 is more, we're including that leadership and management and that supervising of teams element to it as well, and how you can kind of supervise each different function. With the professional cookery ones, there are 3 options there which look kind of quite similar on the outset. Essentially, the patisserie and confectionery one plus the kitchen and larder one. If you look at those units in there, if you kind of do all of those units, it's almost aligned to the chef de partie. So the chef de partie is kind of the larger qualification of the 3. And then the other ones are kind of almost subsets. There's a few different kind of variations in units, but that's generally kind of what you're looking at. So kitchen and larder is more about the sort of producing the starters and the mains. Patisserie and confectionery, obviously display items and kind of desserts. Chef de partie would be working with a whole variety of ingredients and producing a whole range of meals. The chef de partie is linked quite closely to the Commis Chef apprenticeship standard that has gone live. So we've done some mapping that I'll kind of talk about in a little bit in the next section, to show quite how that qualification maps onto the standard. So it is a different option in terms of if you are looking at delivering apprenticeships and want the on-programme element to have a qualification attached to it, and there's no mandatory qualifications, which I'll come on to a bit when we talk about apprenticeships in more detail, but this you can choose an optional qualification if you wish, to provide a framework to support that online learning, and this chef de partie qualification is quite a good sort of fit and can do that. So if you're also working in FE, this could be quite a good qualification to co-deliver to apprenticeship learners plus learners that are doing the full-time course. There could be quite a lot of overlap there. It would need to be topped up in order to meet the apprenticeship standard with a few more things, but there is definitely some options for co-delivery in that. So again, these are aimed at the 16 market and seen as an alternative to our BTEC nationals. Also, they are still on the DFE performance tables, and they will also attract UCAS points because these are level 3. It's not shown on the UCAS tables yet because the next iteration of that publication is not until May 2018, but we have had confirmation that we will definitely be included in that, as I say, in the next publication. Once again, the qualification is 100% mandatory content. All of them have 3 external assessments within them. Because of the size of them, but it does mean that it's up to 50%. So the patisserie confectionery one is the smallest one of those, and 3 units is essentially working out as 50% of that qualification is externally assessed. All of these, though, are online, on-demand question papers that are open-end scenario-based questions. So there's no kind of externally set task or anything like that, but we do also have the synoptic assignment at the end again, which is a requirement to meet the DFE requirements, but once again that is internally set and marked, similar reasons for kind of as I said about the level 2. Okay, I'm not going to go into this specification because it's pretty much showing you a very similar page. However, we don't have a tech level section on our website at the moment. That's because many of the tech level qualifications were our traditional or updated BTEC nationals, but we've gone more very occupationally focused and much more specific with the hospitality tech levels. So because they don't quite follow the same design principles as our nationals, they can't sit under there at the moment. So that you can find these specifications under BTEC Specialist and Professional on our website. Again, it's got the little box with the letters in there, so you can just choose P, which will come up with all of the 3 professional cookery ones, or choose F for the food and beverage one, and you will find the specifications under there. Exactly the same as before in terms of the support that's available, and just a slight note that the covers at the moment on the website that are showing look very kind of bland, but we've just had that signed off in terms of kind of some new covers for that, and some sort of new typography and everything like that. So it's they'll be updated, but none of the content will change. It'll just be kind of, it'll look a little bit more stylish. Okay, so again, it's graded pass, merit and distinction. Again, it has the employer involvement, and again, there's the free kind of resit for each element of the external assessments and the synoptic assessment as well. Okay, so that's just about it really with what I wanted to kind of sort of show you about the different tech levels and technical certificates. There was just one more thing that I wanted to kind of say, where I said about that news tab that we had on the website. If you do want to find out more information, have a right deeper dive into these qualifications, we have got some events coming up next month. You can see on this slide, it's just a screenshot of the website, but the hospitality ones are listed. There's further dates kind of further down on that web page, but that's under that news section. So in that, there will be kind of events looking really into the content, how it can be delivered, the grading kind of elements of that. So as I say, the real sort of deep dive into those. So if you are interested, then please book onto those events and kind of get yourself along, because I think that would be really helpful. So just before we go on to the apprenticeships section, I just wanted to bring on a poll just to kind of get a feeling of if you've delivered qualifications to this similar with Pearson or with a competitor, whether it's something you might be looking at taking and add into your portfolio of qualifications, or whether it's kind of not really for you. It'd be good just to get an idea. Okay, we're looking at about 50-50 in terms of like people that it's not for you. I understand, but it's probably kind of the work-based learning providers. We've got quite a high proportion of those on today. but seemingly some people have delivered these qualifications before, and would perhaps be looking to do it again, and others haven't considered it before, but they would be looking to add it to their provision. So hopefully for that category, this has been kind of use. And what we can do is, as I say, you can book onto those events or contact your account manager, and you'll be able to find out more information kind of via that. Okay, so going on to the apprenticeship section. Now, we have offered webinars associated with apprenticeships within this sector previously. If you've missed any of those, they are available on the website as recordings that you can kind of re-access. Goes into a lot more detail about the overview of the apprenticeship process and what is required. There's quite a lot on funding in there, quite a lot about what you need to be set up as a provider in order to deliver. There's a whole webinar on programme assessment, and then there's a whole other one on EPA assessment as well. So a lot more detail than what I'm going to go into here. But you can access those because really not much has changed from those webinars. But as a brief recap for those in the room, just to sort of what the situation is at the moment. So these new apprenticeship standards are to replace the SASE frameworks that have been existing for a few years now. They've been designed by employers for employers. The SASE frameworks that are in existence at the moment will start to be turned off shortly. Within hospitality, many of them are going to be turned off for new registrations from the 31st of December 2017. And as a kind of a double incentive to switch, not only will they not be available, but whilst they are still available, anyone registering on those, the funding has been dramatically reduced from those SASE frameworks, as I say, as a driver really to kind of push people onto these new standards. We've got the new standards have been developed in the areas that are in the brackets on this slide. So for hospitality team member, that kind of aligned very much to the hospitality services qualification, the food and beverage qualifications, the accommodation ones, the front of house reception. Those kind of SASE frameworks have all sort of been included under this banner of hospitality team member. The sort of only thing to sort of mention really is that where for you could choose like to do a focused qualification on those and do many optional units within each of those pathways. Within hospitality team member, you have a core and sort of specialist approach to it. So there's core skills, knowledge and behaviour, which will apply to all of the kind of the frameworks, but then the specialisms you cover, you can only kind of choose one or two specialisms. So for people that did hospitality services, it might be a little bit more limited than what you were able to do before. And so it's just one thing to kind of bear in mind. Then there's commis chef, which aligns really to professional cookery at level 2. Chef de partie is aligned to professional cookery at level 3. Chef production cooking is a little bit food and beverage, food production and cooking, and professional cookery. It's a level 3 one, so it doesn't quite do the food production and cooking SASE framework. It doesn't really align massively to that. There's elements of that and a bit of professional cookery in there, but it's kind of slightly different to kind of what we've had before. You've got your hospitality supervisor, which was your HSL qualifications, hospitality manager, which we had hospitality manager before, and senior chef culinary arts, which is quite a sort of a new sort of fine dining level 4 standard that we didn't really have anything for in the SASE frameworks before. They are looking at adding an 8th pathway, the food production chef, which I think is coming, should be signed off around April 2018, I believe. And that was because there was this gap that was noticed that there wasn't really anything for the food production cooking SASE framework. There wasn't really a replacement for that. So as I say, some of these frameworks the SASE frameworks will be withdrawn from December 17, that's where there is an existing standard that they feel is kind of aligned to the SASE frameworks where one is already existing. So there are a few exceptions to that, such as the food production and cooking, which they're not looking necessarily to turn off until maybe April, depending on if the new standard and assessment plan gets signed off. As part of the materials that we send out after this, as those frequently asked questions, there's also going to be the summary of the withdrawal dates for each of these pathways. So you'll be able to kind of look up that if you haven't seen that yet. So there's minimum of 12 months on programme delivery with a minimum of 20% on the off-the-job training. And so there is a minimum for the on-programme element, and they need to do the EPA, the endpoint assessment, after that. However, some of the colleges that we've been speaking to and providers that we've been speaking to do not feel that for some of them 12 months is enough, and for some of them they're looking at maybe doing a 13 or 14 month programme, and then EPA kind of after that, which is between 2 and 3 months for the EPA section. So it is kind of lengthening some programmes, because 100% of the content within the standard is mandatory. You haven't got the core and options approach anymore. You have to do everything that's listed in the standard. And so, for example, some of the frameworks are recommended 18 months, such as CommiChef, because there is a lot of content within that. But some providers are not looking to deliver that in under 2 years. So that is really kind of a minimum guidance. And just know that there are lots of providers that are going above that minimum time frame. There are no mandatory qualifications within any of the hospitality frameworks. It is apart from kind of the maths and English. So basically the on-programme element can be delivered in any way that is accepted and discussed between the provider and the employer. So the employer may decide that they want to have a bespoke programme developed, may want to use their in-house programme and kind of tailor that and top it up with some kind of blended learning options, some online delivery perhaps, some first aid qualifications or some food safety qualifications kind of in there as well to top that up. So there's many different ways, but one of those options is, as I said before, delivering an optional qualification to help kind of, so there may be one that they could deliver part of the NVQ or part of the BTEC technical certificate, or those technicals that I was talking about over the previous slides. You'll be able to see that from the mapping documents, which ones are kind of most closely aligned. The only thing to say about that is that the funding that you can draw down to support these qualifications can only be used for that delivery content. It cannot be used for the registration costs for those qualifications. So that's a cost that would either need to be absorbed by the provider or obviously passed on to the employer, depending on how much they kind of value the learners having a qualification to represent that on programme element of the apprenticeship. Okay, so after they've done the on programme part, there is this endpoint assessment, which, as I say, is between 2 and 3 months. There are different components within the hospitality assessments. I'm not going to go into major detail again about this, but generally it's made up of a multiple choice question paper. It could be a culinary challenge or a business project. There's an observation, professional discussion. So it's kind of a mix of those depending on the levels and the framework that you choose, and that obviously needs to be carried out independently by an external assessment organisation. And you can find the external assessment organisations on the register of endpoint assessors, of which Pearson are kind of on there for the hospitality standards. So you'll be able to go on there and choose kind of, as I say, who you kind of look at all the people that are offering and be able to sort of see who you wish to kind of obviously go with. We as Pearson, being an assessment organisation, we would be running, offering kind of gateway support. I'll go into this a bit in the other slides, but what we'll be offering is that endpoint assessment, and we will be quality assured by People First. People First have kind of put a board together that will be the external quality assurance body to make sure obviously our processes and standardisation and and the monitoring our performance of those assessments as well. So that's kind of how it will happen. They are charging £41 per framework, per learner, sorry, for that. So that will be a cost that will be incorporated into our endpoint assessment cost that we offer out to our customers. Okay, so there is a funding cap that is applied to each standard. For example, hospitality team member is £5,000. Commis chef, because there's a lot more content in there, the funding cap for that is £9,000. But in order to draw down funding, the provider must be on the register to be able to, as I said, to draw down that funding. And there is a link in the next page, I think, to just take you to that register if you haven't done so already. As I said, I mentioned the funding can't be used for qualification registrations and certifications, but it can be used for content delivery. However, that is whether that's the content within a qualification or any other online program or any other kind of delivery program that you choose to kind of put together. There is a mandatory employer cash contribution. If they are an employer large enough to pay into the levy, 100% of that charge of that apprenticeship must be paid through the levy. If they're not large enough to draw down the levy, then they have to make a mandatory cash contribution of 10%. It can't be contribution in kind anymore. But obviously the cost of it is not standardised. It depends kind of what the employer wants, and that's negotiated between you as providers and the employers. Okay, so as I said, with the SASE withdrawals, there is the update from People First that I will circulate round with the materials after this presentation. And I think I've kind of said a lot of these points on this, that the frameworks are available where there's a new standard in place. So just to kind of point out that the hospitality manager and the scenery chef culinary arts assessment plans have not yet been signed off. So therefore the aligned SASE frameworks for those qualifications will still be available for a while yet. But after the withdrawal date has happened, all apprentices signing up for apprenticeships will need to be on the new standards. I've just included the link there for the register of apprenticeship training providers for you to apply. It is open kind of quarterly, but since I've done this slide, where I said the next window opens in December, the current window is actually open until the 27th of October. They've extended it. So if you're not on there and you need to be on there, then you have until the 27th of October in this particular window. Okay, just to draw your attention to standard consultations. So the hospitality team member and the supervisor frameworks were signed off, but they've recently undergone a consultation. And this is basically to add further specialisms to those. So looking at adding barista and some retail outlet working and supervision to those. So they're increasing the number of specialist pathways included, but they're also taking the opportunity to tweak some of the content. Some of the assessment criteria was ambiguous. They've tidied that up a little bit, and they've kind of stipulated a little bit more around the assessment in terms of, for example, in the multiple choice questions, exactly how many questions they expect there to be rather than giving a range, exactly what the kind of the content needs to be. And they have produced assessment organisations with some common approach documents that they would expect us all to follow. So it's kind of really adding some rigidity to the assessment plan, so it's it will be consistent quite across in terms of what the content will be. We will still have the ability to obviously develop our own questions, but they would have to be based on the same content as kind of what other assessment organisations would need to offer as well. And they're potentially looking at changing the number of specialisms that you need to choose. So for example, when I was talking about hospitality team member before, where you could choose one option, a couple of options of the specialisms, they're potentially only changing that down to one, but we don't know what that is yet. We're waiting for the outcome of the consultation. The idea of the framework, the time frame that they'd shared with me was that they were looking to have the consultation results kind of reworked and presented for the end of September that they would submit to the IFA at the beginning of October. The IFA then need to approve those changes, and they have a 6-week process. So the earliest that we could be looking at changes to those frameworks being published would be mid-November. If it's rejected, People First would have to rework it. They can't submit it until the beginning of the month, so the earliest that could be is the beginning of December, and then it would be 6 weeks after that as well that they could then kind of republish. We don't know yet. I've raised the question as to whether there'll be requirements for apprentices that are already on programme to amend their training programme to follow the new standards. My feeling is that's probably what they'll expect them to do, or whether it will just be applied from a new date, and anybody that started an apprenticeship programme will follow the assessment plan that was published at the time of them starting. However, that has significant implications because with kind of what the offer is in terms of the different assessments available. We think it will probably be that they'll just have to they've got enough time to amend and meet kind of the new requirements. And it shouldn't be anything too significant, but it may have some implications. So just be aware that there could be some changes there. I'm just going to show you a demo of a page where you can find information. So if we go on to the next demo, please. And this is just basically on People First website where you can find the assessment plans and the standards. So if we just scroll down this page, about halfway down, so below the blue boxes, first of all, you can see the standards and assessment plans for the ones that have been approved. So obviously, if there are any updates to any of those, they will place them there. But you've also got on this page access to the readiness for end assessment templates, the requirements for English and maths. They've got the employer occupational briefs in there as well. So a few more support documents that are for providers of apprenticeships to use if they wish, just to kind of help support that delivery. Oh, I think, sorry, the next slide actually is the demonstration of the mapping document. Okay, so just talking about kind of our on-programme support that's kind of offered from Pearson. So firstly, as I say, we've looked at kind of the SASE qualifications that were available and which is the closest standard that they map onto, and we have started to upload mapping documents onto our website. So I just wanted to show you where they were available. So again, if you go onto our pearson.com/qualifications, look for the section on apprenticeships, that will kind of come up with all the areas that we've got new apprenticeships in. And under hospitality, there's a list of the standards that you can choose which standard you want to focus on. Yeah, so on this page, you choose kind of, so for example, Commis Chef, and then we have the specification set out. That's not that's not the specification as perhaps what we use. That's the specification of the standard, kind of all the different components that need to be covered. And then we go into detail on the on-programme and kind of different training support that's available. Okay, you can see under there a little bit down there's qualification, and it lists 3 qualifications that we feel that we have that map onto the Commis Chef standard. And then just a bit further down we've actually got a mapping document that incorporates, we don't need to open that, but we just need just showing you kind of where it is and what's available. But it lists all 3 of those qualifications and where each of the units within those qualifications and the assessment criteria within those qualifications, which bits map to the new standard. And as I say, we're uploading those for the different standards that are available. So again, just a little bit more support if you kind of are looking at using a qualification to support the on-programme at all. You don't need to register for the qualification if you don't want to. You can just use it as a bit of a framework to support some delivery as a starter for 10 and then build on that. But it's just giving you kind of that signposting as to where the coverage is within those qualifications. Okay, so and also just to mention that the BTEC apprenticeship workbooks and assessment activities that we've had for a while now, there's also some providers have found use in some of the activities that are listed in there. So there are some things, so don't necessarily just discard it if you have been using that at all. Some of the activities are still relevant, so just kind of to bear that in mind. But new stuff that we will have, we are working on Pearson Apprenticeship 360 at the moment. So this is going to be an online tool that has access to things like videos, activities, all stuff all stuff linked to supporting the online delivery that you'll be able to kind of access. Now, we're doing a pilot rollout with centres that have expressed an interest in being involved from November 2017. Unfortunately, we had some supplier issues. It should have been available already, but we had some supplier issues. So what we've done is we've taken it in-house and we're taking full control over it now. And as I say, we're doing a pilot rollout next month. And then once we've got the feedback from that and how it's working, then we'll be able to kind of roll it out to a wider audience base. So that'll be something that you'll be able to kind of access during 2018. For anybody that signs up to our EPA service as well, the multiple choice tests will be offering practice tests that you can kind of use that will be able to obviously help test where learners are within their journey in terms of kind of the knowledge, and you'll be able to kind of use those to see sort of progress checks as well. Okay, and in terms of kind of the EPA, now we're currently preparing our offer for the 4 that are listed there. There's only 4 out of the 7 that we've listed so far, and this is because at the moment we don't actually have much demand for the level 3 chef de partie standard at all. So if you are interested in that, then I really urge you to let your account manager know so that can be fed back to us, because we're just not prioritising any work on that one at the moment. We're focusing on these 4 where there is demand. And the hospitality manager and senior chef culinary arts are not listed because the assessment plans haven't been signed off yet, and we're not sure when those are going to be. So again, those are low priority, so we're not currently working on those. So for Commis Chef, we've got the EPA cost as £1,440. That this is the framework that gets £9,000 worth of funding, and it's recommended up to 20% of that funding is allocated to EPA. So obviously we're coming under the 20% with that. That also includes that £41 cost from People First that we need to pay, but we'll cover the gateway process. We'll cover kind of all the materials that we're offering. If you're at a point where we can offer the App 360, that will be included in there as well as all of the assessments in terms of kind of the tests, the culinary challenges, the professional discussion and the observation that relates to Commis Chef. So that would include kind of everything that we would offer from an assessment organisation. We're about to release additional pricing for the other 3, and that's coming up very, very soon. So literally will be within the next within the next couple of weeks, I believe. And we've just said provisional pricing for hospitality team member and hospitality supervisor, because the price will be based on the assessment plans as they currently are, depending on the result of the consultation and the extent of the changes. We may need to tweak them ever so slightly, but we've just kind of put provisional in there in case we do need to tweak them. But we're not expecting kind of a mass change, especially to the cost. We're not expecting our role to have to kind of change too much in that. So we won't need to pass on anything to you. So our planned offer in terms of EPA that we're working on at the moment. So as I say, we'll have the on-screen, on-demand, auto-marked tests that will give you instant results and feedback in terms of which areas, if the learner has failed any areas, which areas they have failed. So obviously remedial work can be put in place in a targeted way. There'll be practice tests available for those as well. We'll also be developing an EPA specification with guides in terms of helping observations, professional discussions, the grading information, templates to help with the business projects as well that are included. So all information there. We have got a link again that I will send out after. I forgot to put it on this slide actually, but a link to the customer services specification that was actually kind of published and available at the moment, which will give you an idea of what these specifications will look like and the information that's in there. We know that some of our awarding body competitors that are offering assessment, endpoint assessment, have perhaps developed bespoke qualifications for some of the standards. And when we've kind of looked into detail exactly what that qualification is, it is essentially the standard kind of just turned into something that looks more like a qualification format. And we truly believe that what is included within our EPA specification gives you just as much, and if not more, information and more support and an actual framework than what those qualifications offered by other assessment organisations have. So it's just being careful about what the term qualification means, and kind of what that actually includes. So although we haven't developed a specific bespoke qualification, what we will be providing for you will be over and above that. So as I say, I'll send out that specification for you, the customer service one, so you can have a good look through that to see what's included and what you can expect for the hospitality ones. We are looking at working, having our offer available. A lot of the assessments from what has been indicated from our customers at the moment, that they will be starting EPAs for most of these around kind of May, June time. So we're looking obviously to have them ready then, and obviously some of the supporting materials prior to that. So we're looking sort of like spring, summertime is what we're working to at the moment for those. But again, if you are looking at developing them, speak to your account manager, or offering them, sorry, speak to your account manager to make sure that we've got the most up-to-date information on our sales tracker, so we can make sure that the materials are ready in time for when you need them. And it also obviously helps, the more information we have on there, the more we can prioritise kind of the development as well. So it's really important, as I say, to speak to your account manager and let them know what you're looking to deliver and when. Okay, now I'm just going to go on to new developments. There's not many slides left for this presentation, just kind of taking note of the time, and we should still be finishing on time. But if there's any questions kind of bubbling away, please type them in or think of them for the session in the next few minutes. Okay, so a couple of new developments that we're looking at, considering that your work-based learning providers mostly, this might not appeal to the majority on the webinar today, but just to let you know that we are looking at a hospitality national replacement at level 3. The one that we've got at the moment is the 2013 version that has been extended till the end of August 2019, and we're looking at having a replacement available in September 2019. But we won't be starting development on that until early into the new year. So it's a case of just watch this space, but I just wanted to let you know that is happening. The other thing that we're working on a little bit sooner is a Hospitality Tech Award, which is a level 1/2. Again, a kind of a basic kind of really FE level, but we're looking to start development on that, as I say, imminently, within the next kind of few weeks. But we'll probably be looking at submitting a final version of that, I think around February or March time. So it'll be quite a quick development. It is only a small qualification. It's around 3 units, about 150 hours TQT. And it generally has 3 components: about exploring the sector, developing the skills, knowledge and best practice, and then a unit on applying those skills, knowledge and best practice. And just really to highlight that if you would like to be involved in either helping develop the content or reviewing kind of what we put there, just to kind of feed into that to see if it's something that you feel is relevant within your organisation, that's something you develop, but you want to make sure that the assessment is right, the content is right for your learners, then please contact me, and I will add you to the list of people to be involved. And as soon as we start that development, we will kind of give you sort of timelines and ways that you can be involved, and then you can choose from that, as I say, your level of involvement. And so just kind of contact me on that. Okay, and then finally, just the extensions and withdrawals. A lot of the qualifications, as I mentioned at the top of this presentation, is that are looking to be have a current review date of the 31st of December 2017. The majority of the qualifications are SASE component qualifications, and even though the SASE frameworks are withdrawing, we will continue to offer them for obviously anybody that wants to use them as on-programme qualifications, anybody that has already started using the SASE qualifications and doing the SASE apprenticeships, but also for colleagues in Wales that are doing SASU, where those qualifications still feature. So we are looking to extend those at least until 2018, probably until December 2019, and the decision's being made in the next couple of weeks. But just to kind of make you aware that there are some qualifications within those that have had very, very low take-up recently, and we are exploring kind of with any centres that have been using those, whether they will continue to use those from January. There are a couple that are at risk of us kind of withdrawing just because we just don't see there being any demand. There are also some BTEC specialist qualifications that are in a similar state that we are looking at withdrawing. So I've listed those in the bullet points, the ones that are most at risk. So if there is any there that you are concerned about, that you believe that you will continue to offer beyond December 17, again, please contact me directly, tara.powerville@pearson.com, and I will be able to feed that in. But I would need to know by the end of next week, please, if you are looking to still deliver those.